News confirming that the House Judiciary Committee is looking into whether the Attorney General of the United States lied to Congress while under oath. That question concerns the AG's testimony from May 15th. During his sworn testimony, Mr. Holder told lawmakers, this is before it emerged that he had personally signed off on this search warrant for James Rosen's personal emails. But it was after the AP scandal had broken, where we found out that they'd been monitoring AP phone calls for a 2-month period a year ago. And when he testified before Congress on May 15th, he told them that he has never been involved in the, quote, potential prosecution of the press for this type of leak or disclosure. Here's the comment.
I would argue that the Espionage Act of 1917 would authorize the prosecution of anyone who disclosed classified information, and perhaps that's another area that we may need to take action on here in this Congress.
With regard to the potential prosecution of the press for the disclosure of material, that is not something that I've ever been involved in, heard of, or would think would be a wise policy.
Since that date, we have, of course, learned that it was Eric Holder himself who signed off on a search warrant identifying Fox News reporter James Rosen as part of a conspiracy to leak classified information. The U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia arguing to the judge in an effort to get that search warrant that the DOJ could potentially charge Rosen at some point and labeling him, saying that, and I quote, there is probable cause to believe that the reporter has committed or is committing a violation of the Espionage Act as an aider and abettor and or co-conspirator. So, did the Attorney General lie to Congress there? And should he step down in the wake of calls now from both sides of the aisle that he do so? Joining me now, Alan Colmes, host of The Alan Colmes Show and a Fox News contributor, and Lars Larson, who's a syndicated radio host on Compass Media Networks. So I want to get your take. Let me just ask you whether you think that was a lie, because what he said, Lars, was
yes.
The potential prosecution of the press for these leaks is not something I've been involved in, heard of, or would support, basically, would think would be wise policy. The potential prosecution of the press is not something I've ever been involved in or even heard of. Your thoughts?
Well, he's either evil or incompetent or both. Evil if he did it and then knowingly lied to Congress, which is perjury, and he should be charged, and then the president should fire him. Incompetent if he knew he was going to testify to Congress, and with the gigantic staff that the DOJ has, didn't say to his staff, have we signed off on any of these things? Did you put paper in front of me that I signed without even looking at it, where we went after a reporter? And if he's that incompetent, at least he should be competent enough to ask his staff, did I ever do this? Let me know before I testify to Congress. He didn't do either. So he's either evil or incompetent or a little bit of both. And I'd vote for both. And I don't know how the president can keep on an attorney general who's one or the other.
Alan?
I think we're too quick to point fingers and name call. And we don't have all the information yet. Did he willfully lie? A lie has to be willful. I don't think we know that. And I'm not prepared to say he should step down at this point because we don't have the information.
Well, let me back you up. Let me back you up before we even get to willfully lie or not willfully lie. I don't know that we have established he lied at all.
Right, exactly.
I mean, if you parse the language, okay, if the lawyer in me parses the language, what he said was, I've never been involved in or even heard of the potential prosecution of the press.
Correct.
Now, he may have been drawing a line between, in his head at this point, he knows that he signed off on a search warrant that alleged James Rosen was a criminal. But he may be, that doesn't mean I was ever going to prosecute him. I was never going to prosecute the reporter. I just had to say he was a criminal to get his access to his records.
Megan, I think you're exactly right. There is a fine line there. And in his mind, was he ever going to prosecute? Well, the administration has said over and over again they have never any intention of prosecuting James Rosen or other reporters. Was it wrong for him to sign that and go after a reporter? I think so. It's chilling that an administration, a high-level person like Holder, would sign something that would go after and seek records of a reporter doing his job and then call that reporter a co-conspirator. But did he willfully, was that a lie? I mean, they've been trying to get him on something for years now. Was this perjury? That's a very different question.
Well, that's the thing. And our viewers should know, to get somebody on perjury, you got to have them dead to rights. You got to have them right. There can't be wiggle room. I don't know they have it here. Lars, go ahead.
Here's the Attorney General who goes to the courts and says, I need this warrant to go after this man because, and if you read the details, he has to be going after him because he believes that as a co-conspirator, the man may either disguise himself, I don't think Rosen would do that, he's a nice guy, or flee, I don't think that's likely.
He alleged that. No, they suggested he might be a flight risk.
That he might be a flight risk, really. That Rosen might take off and flee the country because the Attorney General thinks that he may have helped to steal secrets.
All right, but listen, look.
Does that make sense?
But here's the question. Because Holder now, I mean, the Daily Beast has this long article talking about, and it's entitled Holder's Regrets and Repairs. And it does the postmortem on how Eric Holder knew in the wake of the AP scandal, you know, about the Rosen thing, and he knew that the gravity, here's what they write. For Attorney General Eric Holder, the gravity of the situation didn't fully sink in until Monday morning when he read the Washington Post front page story sitting at his kitchen table and saw all the details about how the agents had tracked James Rosen's movements in and out of the State Department and so on. And according to his aides, he was beginning to feel a creeping sense of personal remorse. But Alan, he told NPR he couldn't even remember how many cases he actually signed off on in which this had happened, even though he takes them very seriously.
If you're going to sign off on affidavit having to do with a reporter, particularly one from a reporter who is perceived to be from an organization that is perceived as hostile to the administration, you probably should know about that and know what the political consequences could be of that. But that being said, you know, calls for his head are quite premature, and he should be given the opportunity to explain himself more fully so we know exactly where he was coming from on that. By the way, the Republicans have been calling for investigations into leaks for a very long time. They're the ones who have been calling from it, and in fact, Mitch McConnell... Well,
that's what he seems to be doing, and this piece seems to blame the Republicans because they're putting too much pressure on Eric Holder to investigate leaks. What was he supposed to do? He had to go after James Rosen for being a leaker.
They didn't have to go to Rosen, but they wanted the investigation.
Here's what I want to ask you, Lars, because the White House, the DOJ would seem to have us believe right now that this is just, look, national security, the AP compromised national security with respect to this Yemen plot they were going to report on. James Rosen was talking about North Korea. Eric Holder has a duty. But there is a question about whether, in particular in the Rosen case, this is part of an enemies list. And the president's made no secrets about the fact that he does not like Fox News Channel. He doesn't want people watching the Fox News Channel. His administration, Anita Dunn, didn't seem to think we were even a legitimate news channel. They tried to exclude us from round-robin interviews that the administration was offering at one point, and our fellow news organization stood up and said, you can't do that. And then, personally, I'll tell you that the DOJ spokesperson, who was in place for this, almost all of the administration, but for the last couple of months, Tracy Schmaler, a woman with whom we've had many dealings here on this show, and we at the Fox News Channel, and also Cheryl Atkinson of the CBS News has documented the number of screaming fests Tracy has unloaded on her. I can tell you, Lars, that there are questions about whether this is an administration that can't take any negative criticism, in particular at the DOJ, and people like Tracy, who are spokespeople for the Attorney General, or were up until a couple of months ago. Now she works for David Axelrod, are undermining the current message that this was completely innocent and not political.
Megan, that's hard to believe because look at it this way. Was the IRS used apparently for political purposes? Yes. Was the DOJ used for political purposes in both the AP and in the Fox News case, James Rosen? Yes. Is HHS being used for political purposes to illegally raise money to promote Obamacare, which the administration can't do? Yes. Was Benghazi handled politically with lies to the American public about what really happened there because the president needed 6 or 8 weeks of breathing room to get past an election? This administration doesn't seem to hesitate to use any organ of government to go after people for political purposes or use it to the president's benefit. And And we can't keep hearing this excuse that we didn't know anything about what was going on in our own government until we read it in the paper or saw it on the news.
But I want to
It's
ask you about that,
absurd.
Alan, because I'll tell you, just, in a lot of our dealings with Tracy Schmaler took place back in 2010.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not going to, this is a sit-down interview she did with us at, not us, but the Fox News Channel at some point before she left DOJ. This person clearly doesn't like the Fox News Channel and doesn't like criticism coming into the DOJ. Now, that's not unusual, not to like criticism of your boss. But I'm telling you, when you have an ambassador like that speaking for you, it undermines your ability as Eric Holder to come out now when you've been caught doing something so controversial. To say, we are apolitical, it wasn't about Rosen, wasn't about Fox, I can take criticism, trust me, I'm a reasonable guy. When you choose somebody like that for your ambassador and to be your spokesperson and person interacting for you with the press.
That's not a reason to believe that Obama himself knew about this, was involved in it, and because he may personally not particularly like the Fox News Channel, may not want people to watch the Fox News Channel.
I'm not suggesting Obama. I'm on Holder.
Fine. But to then say that there was an attempt to prosecute, which I think is the key question here, and a desire to prosecute and a lie before the Congress under oath, based on the fact that we know that the administration does not look generally, we know all administrations don't particularly get along with the media, but in particular this administration does not like this news outlet, but then to say that therefore the Attorney General must likely be guilty of perjury because we know what his true feelings are.
Again, I'm not saying likely of perjury. I'm saying the personal remorse and the soul searching he's now allegedly doing according to the Daily Beast. Lars, I'll ask you, is it harder to buy in the wake of the past 5 years when we've seen Eric Holder, his spokesperson, and this administration and their dealings with the press, negative press in particular that they don't like?
Megan, here's the thing. Alan would like to focus on this question of precisely whether prosecution was planned. The fact that the DOJ represented to the judge that we believe this person is a co-conspirator is enough for me. But I think what you should really consider is, as an attorney, you're an attorney, does the chill begin to happen when an administration even hints that we could prosecute a reporter for doing his job?
No, it definitely,
that's when the chilling effect starts.
There's no question. Everybody's agreed on that. But now I think for the first time, I mean, I said on O'Reilly as a legal analyst, I didn't think that Fast and Furious was going to be the end of Eric Holder, nor any of the other things that he's been involved in. But I don't know about this one. I mean, you got the Huffington Post on the left saying it's time for you to go, as well as, the folks on the right. We'll see. Guys, thank you.
Thank you.